Hello and welcome to this webinar. Many thanks for taking the time to attend this training on the Trustee Advice Fee Policy. My name is Joe Todaro, Advisor Education Analyst, and joining me is Neve O'Brien, who is managing the change.
Hi, Joe, and hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back. A very big welcome to this webinar, which today we're trying to help you to be ready for the go live of the Trustee Advice Fee Policy in North Online, and that's happening this coming weekend, the 23rd of January.
Thanks, Neve. Today we'll go through a live demonstration of the new functionality in North Online. You saw this as screenshots in our webinar in November, and a recording of that webinar can be found on North Online. So I'll show you where that webinar is held on North. So we're on North Online, looking for the support heading just across the top, head down to training videos, and then just scroll down the page under the heading webinar recordings, and you can see second from the top there is the Trustee Advice Fee Policy as we introduce an overview of the policy. So it's an in-depth coverage of the policy, and we ask if you can to have a look at that recording. Also note that today's webinar will also be recorded and uploaded in this very spot. So for you to review or refer to a colleague, you would enter North Online and have a look at our recording under webinar recordings there. As Neve said, the reason for this training is to help you be prepared for the policy when it goes live for North products this coming Saturday. This learning is separated into 3 different learning modules. The first module is a quick refresh walkthrough of the Trustee Advice Fee Policy. Next, we'll focus on showing you the key changes in North Online that you need to know. Then, we'll summarize what you can do to get ready this week and where you can go to find help and useful resources. You'll have a chance to submit questions to the Trustee Advice Fee Policy and product subject matter experts. As we go through the training and questions occur to you, select the chat icon on the left-hand side menu and then type a question. You can ask questions at any time throughout. All of your questions will be answered within the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll also email you all directly with all of the questions and the answers along with a copy of this training pack, so you won't need to frantically jot down notes. We'll send it out to you. The learning objectives that we're seeking to achieve today in this webinar are that to reinforce your understanding of the Trustee Advice Fee Policy, for you to see and be familiar with what is changing on North Online, and lastly, to understand how you can be prepared when it becomes effective this Saturday, the 23rd of January. So let's get into the content of this. I'll hand you over to Neve to refresh you on the details of the Trustee Advice Fee Policy.
Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, so this is the list of super and pension products that the Trustee Advice Fee Policy will be applicable to from this weekend. So please note the policy does not apply to IDPS products on North Online. And these are the policy rules and caps that will be applicable from this weekend, and that's to all existing and new advice fee agreements. The first one there is transaction-based advice fees. So from this Saturday, this system functionality to designate a fee for a transaction will actually be removed from North Online, where it's related to a super or pension account. So you won't be able to actually do that anymore. The second one there is a one-off advice fee cap, and you can see the details, and that one-off cap is over a rolling 5-year period, and it's based on the client's balance across all of their North product accounts, so super and pension, so the My North, the North, Summit, Generations, iAccess Super and pension accounts. The next one there is the ongoing advice fee cap, which is 2.2% per annum, including GST. And the last one there is the fact that you can't charge an advice fee to account unless it has a balance of 10,000 or above. So there's a minimum account balance of 10,000 for an advice fee to be charged. Now, as you're probably aware, there is an advice fee exception process, and that allows you to charge above the fee cap if your exception request is approved. And that's in the case of, you want to charge above the fee caps that we've talked about above, but also in the case where you might want to charge fees to an account less than $10,000, but where the client's total FUM is in excess of $50,000. So in that case, also you would apply for an exception. And Joe's going to demonstrate that to you here today. It's actually embedded in the advice fee request process. So you'll be prompted to submit that exception request, and you'll see that shortly. Okay, so these are the key rules that are really driven by the draft legislation. The first is client consent. So the fact that client consent is needed prior to any advice fee being deducted from a member's account, and that's either a one-off or an ongoing. The fact that all new advice fee arrangements will be for a maximum of 12 months only, and that existing undated advice fee arrangements will continue until the 31st of December 2021. And that's unless you want to terminate them earlier. And Joe will demonstrate that to you a little bit in a minute. And I suppose that's a good point for me to segue back to Joe. So Joe, if I hand you back, if you could please take us through the demonstration.
Thanks so much for that, Neve. There are 4 key areas to call out. First is that there'll be an updated advisor remuneration screen. Secondly, we're introducing a new advice fee screen, which is exciting. Then there's the consent process, and I'll show you how to upload client consent as a part of the pre-submission process. And then finally, I'll talk to you about the advice fee status and how you can check the status of a submitted fee request. So I'm going to walk you through all of these 5 scenarios on North Online, including enter an end date for an existing fee arrangement in the advisor remuneration screen, submit a new agreement in the new advice fee screen through to submission and tracking of its progress, submitting a new business application, and then the different options for ceasing an agreement. So we've got cancel, terminate, and replace. And finally, I'll finish with an enhancement to the upload forms on North Online. So let's get started. We'll jump on to North Online. So here we are on North Online. And for this example, we have a client that holds 2 accounts, a MyNorth pension and a MyNorth super account. And for this example, we want to cease remuneration within the MyNorth super account and complete a new advice fee arrangement. So let's go into the super account. Within the super account, we're looking for the account details menu across the top. Head to advisor remuneration. So we're going to cease the old current arrangement within the advisor remuneration screen. You'll notice that there is a gold system notification across the top that highlights that the advisor remuneration screen is no longer available for changes to advice fees. Any advice fees detailed below will continue. However, you can enter an end date and select Save to indicate that these fees are to cease. Where you do not have an end date for advice fees, we will automatically cease these fees on the 31st of December 2021. So please use our new advice fees menu option to submit a new fee arrangement for ongoing and one-off fees, advice fees. And that's what we're going to do in a couple of moments' time. It's important to note that if you want to partially change an agreement, then you'll need to contact the North Service Centre. You'll be unable to make any changes to the detail on this screen. So let's go ahead and enter an end date. You can either enter that end date manually or you can select it from the calendar. I'm going to choose the 29th of January. I'm then going to go ahead and select Save. And by selecting Save, you'll notice that the blue message below states advice fees listed below will cease on the date entered. And that is all you need to do. Unlike other activities on North Online where you may proceed and select Next to go to the pre-submission documentation screen, you won't be asked to do that in this instance. And that's complete. So now let's proceed to create a new fee arrangement, and we're going to be doing that by selecting advice fees. You can either get there by the account details menu across the top, down to advice fees, or alternatively, we can select it from the menu. Here we are on the new advice fees menu screen. You notice that it's broken up into 3 areas: the ongoing advice fees, the one-off advice fees, and recipients of advice fees. And I'll touch briefly on the recipients of advice fees, which will state the advisor code that is listed against the current account. You have the option to add new advisor codes to it if you wish and split the advice fees if desired. So let's talk about the ongoing advice fees. So how do you add that agreement? So we're going to select Edit to edit the detail on the page. Across to the right-hand side, we're going to select Add Agreement. Once you hit Add Agreement, you'll notice that it will ask you to enter the start and end date of the fee agreement period. So let's go ahead and enter a period. I'm going to commence it on the 30th of January 2021. It will automatically state an end date of 1 year in advance, so 12-month period. Let's scroll down the page just a touch. You will have the option of entering an ongoing dollar amount, which is per annum, and an ongoing percentage amount, which is also per annum. Really important to call out that these figures are a per annum basis. So we're going to go ahead and enter a fee of 0.5%. Across to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll notice there are two graphics that appear. We've got an annual fee and monthly fee. So with the monthly fee, it is at $9.61, which is the annual fee divided by 12. So I'm going to click on the question mark, and it states the yearly advice fee, which is over 12 months, based on the ongoing percentage estimated using the current account value, and likewise for the monthly fee. All it is really dividing the annual fee by 12. So why am I harping on the amount is listed as a per annum basis? Because if you change your fee agreement to be less than a 12-month period, so for example, I'm going to click back and add it to end at the end of the financial year, so a 6-month period. The figures that you notice there don't change. So what will you receive in terms of an ongoing fee for this account? You'll receive $9.61 per month, which will be paid from up until the end date, up until the 30th of June 2021. You won't actually receive the full $115.35 or the full annual amount. So really important to call that out. It's also really important to note that the overall balance for the client's two accounts is at $235,000. The reason that I call that out is that the trustee advice fee policy has an ongoing advice fee cap of 2.2% per annum for the client as a whole. Functionality, however, on North Online looks at the cap of the 2.2% at an account level. So when I enter a fee that is over the 2.2% within the account, even though it might be under 2.2% for the client as a whole, you're going to receive a system notification indicating that you've gone over the cap. So let's do that now. I'm going to put a fee of 3%, and there we have a warning message. And the warning message indicates that the amount entered is higher than the ongoing advice fee cap. To either reduce this amount to remain within the cap, or if you're seeking an exception, and in this example for this account, you would need to seek an exception. To go to North Online, across the top, head down to Products and Forms to find the advice fee cap exception form. So you would still need to go ahead and proceed with the exception request for this account, even though you're under the 2.2% for the client as a whole. Alternatively, if this client only held the one account and you were over the 2.2%, you would also need to lodge an exception if you're going over that cap. So when lodging an exception, you would go and find the appropriate form, fill out that form and email it off, but also submit the request on North Online. So let's proceed. I'm going to alter my fee to 1%. And I'm going to scroll down the page. We've got one-off advice fees. To add a one-off advice fee, select Add Fee on the right-hand side, and then we have a drop-down menu for the fee description. So I've selected the drop-down menu, and you have the option for a few different options there. You can choose Advice Fee Initial, Member Advice Fee Implementation, or Ad Hoc. I'm just going to choose Ad Hoc, and enter a fee of $1,000. You'll notice that there is a table listed below. This table will aggregate all of the one-off fees that have been paid across all of the client accounts under this one client. Also to consider, as I mentioned, the trustee advice fee policy caps accounted over the total balances for the client across all of their accounts. To do this, all of the client accounts for super and pension will need to be under the one client number. You'd previously been able to create new client accounts by creating a completely new client, which meant that if the client held multiple accounts, these would appear under different client numbers. This is now no longer the case, and you won't be able to create a new account for an existing client as a new client number with a different client number. You will now only be able to create new client accounts for an existing client under the same client number. So let's proceed with this example and scroll down the page. You can now alter the recipient of advice fees if desired. If not, to proceed to the pre-submission documentation screen, select Next. So here we are on the pre-submit documentation screen. And firstly, we have the client consent options. So to choose how you'll obtain consent from the client for this request, which North will require, you can either upload a paper-based signature or alternatively a third-party electronic signature like DocuSign. So I'm going to choose a paper-based signature for this example, and we'll scroll down the page. We then have the download and review documents, which is the advice fees alteration form, which you'll need to open up for the client consent. Let's go ahead and open that now. This new document is the advice fees alteration form, and you'll notice the first page has a summary of the client and advisor details. So we'll scroll down to page 2. Page number 2 will list all of the changes that you've made for the new advice fee arrangement, including the ongoing advice fees and the one-off advice fees that we've entered previously. So you'll notice that it will state that the ongoing advice fees will be deducted from the cash account each month, with the first payment to be applied on the 28th of February and the final fee to be paid on the 29th of June for this particular example. And that is a change, a point of difference of how fees were deducted from the account previously. Previously, fees were deducted on the month anniversary of the account and are now in line with the fee arrangement date. Another key call-out is the enhancement that we have made to this document. Previously, the account details authorization screen, which would have listed the changes to advisor remuneration, listed all of the account detail, which would then bold the changes that you've made to advice fees. This is now no longer the case, and a simplified version that will only highlight the changes that you're making to the advice fee arrangement. So let's keep scrolling through the document to the client consent. So this is where your client will consent. So let's head back to North Online. All that's left to do for the activity is to attach the advice fees alteration form by selecting Browse and then uploading the document. Finally, you'll also need to attach client identification. You will need to attach client identification for the first change that we're making to the advice fees. But once you have sent us identification, you'll no longer need to provide that again to us when making changes to advice remuneration. The client identification box will no longer be there for future requests. I'm going to go ahead and browse and upload the two documents. Once you've browsed and added the two documents, select Upload to upload them to North Online. At this stage, you can either save the activity to come back to it later, or alternatively, if you're ready to proceed, tick the box to confirm and select Submit, which will appear for you. So let's submit this request. Upon submission of the request, North Online will take you to the client's account snapshot, and I've just scrolled down the screen to Advisor Remuneration. And you'll notice that we've got Member Advice Fee and Member Advice Fee Ongoing. The Member Advice Fee Ongoing was the previous fee that we had ceased with the end date of the 29th of January 2021, and then we have listed our new advice fee arrangement. Note that there will be denoted by a red dot once the request goes off to the North Service Centre, awaiting for approval. Let's scroll up the page to take a look at the advice fee screen. To find the advice fee screen, select the account details option from the menu across the top and head back to advice fees. You'll notice that a system notification will pop up confirming that there is currently an advice fee transaction in process, and the transaction will need to be finalized before you can enter a new advice fee request. If you need assistance, contact the North Service Centre. Note that the request has gone off to the North Service Centre and is waiting approval. At this stage, you won't be able to make any changes to the advice fee screen until that approval has been received. If you had only submitted an ongoing advice fee and not submitted a one-off fee, then at this stage, if you wanted to go back and submit a new one-off fee, then you won't be able to do that until approval of the initial request has been received. So let's close that system notification. And how else can you check with an activity in progress? You will go to your activities within the account and activities in progress. Once completed, the request will move for activities in progress over to completed. In our example, we have ceased a current old advice fee with an end date and also added a new fee arrangement in the new advice fee screen. So let's now look at those changes within a new business application. So I'm within a new business application and I've skipped ahead to page number 3, account details. I've scrolled down the page to where you'll find ongoing advice fees and one-off advice fees. And you'll notice that it looks very similar to the advice fees page in our previous example. So let's go ahead and add a new agreement. You'll be prompted to enter the start and end date just as we previously done. It will default to a 12-month period, but of course you can change that date, the end date, and then enter your ongoing dollar or ongoing percentage amount per annum. And note again, just to harp on it, it is a per annum amount. So I'm going to choose an ongoing percentage of 0.5%. I won't enter a one-off advice fee for this scenario, but we'll scroll down the page. I also won't make any changes to the recipients of advice fees and proceed with this application by selecting Next. Let's proceed to the Pre-Submit Documentation screen. So here we are on the Pre-Submission Documentation screen on page 5 of a new business application. And you notice the only form that we do have there is the application form. So let's go ahead and open that document now. I've scrolled down the page of the new business application form to the advice fees section. And notice this looks very similar to the example we had previously when we were on advice fees. It will stipulate the ongoing advice fees deducted from the cash account, will state the period and of course the first deduction of the fee. We're going to scroll down to the last page, which will be the client consent or the client signature. And the client, of course, will need to sign this document. So now let's head back to North Online again. So back on the pre-submission documentation screen, we'll scroll down the page to upload documents. Under the upload documents heading, we've got upload application form. You will need to upload the new business application form, which you previously didn't need to do. So you will now need to upload that to new business applications. And that is due to obtaining client consent for advisor remuneration. Even if you don't stipulate advice fees to be within an application, you will still need to upload the signed application form. You'll also need to upload client identification with the request also. So that is adding a new agreement within a new business application. So now you've seen the differences between the two, between adding to an existing account and a new business application and the different forms. So now let's go ahead and look at making changes to an existing fee arrangement within the advice fees screen. So now we have a new example of a client that has the new fee arrangement approved. Once the North Service Centre has approved the fee arrangement, you will automatically receive an email confirming the advice fee has been set up. So let's look at making changes to the advice fee screen when terminating, replacing, or creating the next agreement. To do that, we'll select the Account Details menu across the top and back into Advice Fees. To make changes to the advice fees screen, select Edit and we'll scroll down the page. Let's start by selecting Terminate Current Agreement. In red below, it will denote that you have selected Terminate Current Agreement, which will automatically terminate the ongoing advice fees upon submission of this request. So to proceed with that request, select Next to continue. So let's go ahead and select Next. You'll notice on the pre-submission documentation screen, all that we have is the advice fees alteration form, and you are not requested to add client ID as this has previously been done for the client. So let's go back to our request. So now let's choose Replace Current Agreement. In red below, it will say that you've selected Replace Current Agreement, which will cease the current agreement early. And if you don't want to proceed, you would just click here. But to proceed, let's scroll down the page. When replacing the current agreement, you either select two options. Choose either when the new agreement starts, or alternatively on submission of this request. I'm going to keep it as this date, and you would then enter the next fee agreement details. So let's scroll up and cancel this request. We're going to now show you how to create the next agreement by selecting that button. And it will appear just below for the next agreement. It will automatically start from the end date of the previous agreement to 1 year in advance. It is important to note that you can forward date up to 120 days. So I'll show an example of when we go even further. So I'm going to make the start date further in advance to the 30th of April. I'm going to then scroll down the page and we'll select Next. So let's select Next. And you'll notice the warning that the next fee arrangement can't be established for more than 120 days in advance. So that now concludes our demonstration on making changes to an existing advice fee arrangement within the advice fees screen. So now let's look at another enhancement that's been made to the Upload Documents form on North Online. When uploading documents on North Online, you do that by selecting the Activities menu across the top and head to Upload Forms. Within the Upload Forms, there is a drop-down menu with all the options that are listed to upload documentation, and there are lots of options available below. Note that we have made a change, which is now listed as Client Identification Documentation, which previously referred to Know Your Client or KYC documents, and also an option for Client Identification. They've now been merged to be under the one option, which is Client Identification Documentation. So that now concludes our demonstration for the Trustee Advice Fee Policy on North Online for functionality, as well as the enhancement that was made to the upload forms. So we'll head back over to you, Neve, to talk about what you need to do to prepare.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, getting ready, what you need to do to prepare. So the big number one for this week is clearing your in-progress Save to Resume advice fee updates. So if you have any transactions with advice fees that are currently in progress in Save to Resume, please make a plan to clear or submit them all by close of business this Friday, 22nd of January. So this will make sure that those advice fee details are not lost or impacted as we cut over to the new changes. There's a list of those transactions and the impact as a following slide here, so you'll see that in a minute. Secondly, be prepared from Saturday to obtain your client's ID and to obtain their consent and include their ID when you're submitting changes to advice fees, or new advice fee requests. So that's live from this Saturday. And we've actually had a couple of questions about providing client consent for current existing advice fee arrangements, so sort of getting them into the new process. So really think about them in terms of setting up a new advice fee agreement. So if you have a current agreement and say you're not not planning on changing the amount, you know, say $100 a month with a client or something, and you're not planning on changing the amount, but you just want to get that agreement into this new process because you have an opportunity to collect the client's consent, then in this system, you treat it like a new agreement. So you terminate the old agreement and you set up a new agreement and submit the client consent that way. Okay, and then the last thing to bear in mind, of course, is that the policy fee caps will apply from this weekend. So there is a file and portal for you to check if there's any impact on any of your accounts. And we've given the address or the location of the file in the support section of this training pack. Also, you contact your BDM, or if you have any questions, or also please reach out to the AFP inbox or mailbox if you have any questions. So this is the list of transactions that will be impacted if they're sitting in Save to Resume and they have advice fees attached to them. So you can see the impacts there. So please either clear or submit those by this Friday, the 22nd of January. Okay, and we have some support tools available to help you. Just some of them are listed here. So that's the data file that I've mentioned first there that will help you to see if your current agreements are impacted anyway. Then there's the transaction listing there that I've just shown you. That will show you all of those transactions that will be impacted. So again, make sure you clear out your Save to Resume before the weekend. There's the location of the exception form there, and where you'll find FAQs and other information on North Online. We have a portal page, so please, there's plenty of resources on there, so please visit that if you can, or if you have an ID, or please get your ID if you don't, but there's plenty of information on there, so have a good look around there. And again, once again, don't get stuck, right? So reach out, contact your BDM, or email us if you have any questions. Please don't get stuck, and we want you to be as ready as possible and support you as much as we can. But also today is a good time to do that. So if you have questions that have occurred to you as we've gone through that, please submit them right here at the moment, and that would be fantastic.
Thanks, Neve. That's right. We're going to keep this webinar open for a couple minutes more for you to answer any questions that you might have that you haven't submitted already. As a reminder, it's on the left-hand side menu chat icon. Go ahead and type in a question, and we'll get back to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. We're going to collate all of the questions and answers and get those out to all of you, including this presentation pack as well. So we'd like to say thank you very much for attending our webinar today, and we hope that has clarified and it's been informative. So from me, Joe Tadaro, it's goodbye from now. Thanks very much.
And from me, Neve, thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. And once again, reach out if you need any help or support. And yeah, the best of luck. Thank you very much.